Greetings and salutations. Thank you for clicking on this video. I sure do appreciate it. If you are going to watch this video with the attitude that I need to get to the point, or you don't want to hear my life story, or you don't really care about what I'm going to say, then you are more than welcome to, at this point, click off and go watch Justin Bieber videos. Because this video is me rambling on about my experiences with different Linux distributions, and I'm going to sit here and talk for a little while. And if that's something you're interested in, thanks for sticking around. If not, keep your dislikes and your negative comments to yourself and go find something else to watch. So, why am I doing this video? That is the first question that I want to answer. In the past, I have done videos on my channel where I put the clickbait title on them, "What's the best Linux distribution?" And of course, those videos always get a lot of hits because there are a lot of people coming to Linux these days and they are looking for a place to start. And not too long ago, I posted a video, How to Get Started with Linux, where I kind of went through my opinions on what I think the best process is and what distros are good to start with. And I still stand by all of that, so whatever I put in here doesn't take away from that. The original intent for this video was just to show you guys that yes, Ubuntu 16.04.1 works, and it is currently running on my daily driver. This replaces Linux Mint 17.3. There are reasons why I wanted to be on the 16.04 platform, mainly because I wanted to be able to test out and try new technologies. And this is the one version of Ubuntu that I have not tried on hardware, which is just the standard Ubuntu with the Unity desktop. So I got the network installer up and running yesterday and went ahead and installed it, and it works. I haven't had any issues at all. Network Manager is working, all the graphics are working, I don't have any problems on this computer. So that's cool. I mean, it's the middle of August, and Ubuntu 16.04, the long-term support release, was released in April, so it's nice to see that Canonical and all of the upstream providers have finally come together in such a way that they have a fully functioning system that I assume works on more hardware than it did on the day it was released. You see, that kind of really miffed me at that time, because I was really excited about Ubuntu 16.04 and looked at it in beta. And I was particularly excited about Ubuntu Mate 16.04. Those of you who have watched my channel will remember that I basically said it was the most awesome distro on the planet. And the last video with the clickbait title, "What is the best Linux distribution?" that I put up there, I said that I thought it was the most awesome distribution, especially for beginners, and I still do in many ways. I have a great deal of respect for what Martin Wimpress and Alan Pope and all of the gang that put together Ubuntu Mate. I love what they do. But when 16.04 came along, guess what? It wouldn't work on my hardware no more. I couldn't install it. So therefore, I had to go look for something else. What did I end up using? Linux Mint 17.3, because it actually worked on my hardware. And then I ended up looking, of course, at Linux Mint 18. Linux Mint 18 is very highly praised by some, and some people really don't like it. And it really depends on who you talk to. The people that like it are those who just want an easy-to-use distro and look at it more from the user's point of view. However, in the Linux community, a lot of people who are engineers look at Linux Mint and don't like the way they do things. So there it is. Now, I just installed Linux Mint on my mother's machine. She is on Linux Mint 17.3, and she's not going to come off of it, regardless of what, supposed security flaws or whatever might be in Linux Mint. And I have a client that I'm scheduled to install Linux Mint for next week, and I fully intend to put Linux Mint 17.3 on her machine. Simply because, number one, right now it works, and number two, I don't think that the security problems that people go on about are really that big a deal as long as the user is educated and knows how to practice common sense on the internet. So that's my opinion on that. But what the strange thing happened is that when Ubuntu 16.04 didn't work, it started me looking at a bunch of other distros. I think that on this particular machine that I'm doing this video on, I have installed at one point or another every major distribution of Linux that's out there today. And they all suck. Every one of them has issues, problems, and so that's why you have the title of this video. Because what I want to do is I want to take this really cool visual aid that it took me all of about 10 seconds to come up with because I copied it from distrowatch.com. And I just want to go down this list and I want to talk a minute about the good and bad points of all of these distributions and the things that I ran into. And I want to just kind of, and I'm not going to go into any great detail on any one of them, but I'm just going to do this because I get asked these questions all the time. Have you tried this? Have you looked at that? Do you know about this? Yes, the answer is yes. I'm constantly loading things up in virtual machines and even testing them on hardware. Like I said, I've looked at just about every major distribution of Linux since since April. And some of them I've done videos about, some of them I haven't. So I just want to go through here real quick. Number one on the DistroWatch distribution rank here, which is just these numbers mean nothing. The only thing these numbers mean is how many hits the DistroWatch page gets for that distribution in a day. That's all it means. It does not mean that more people use Linux Mint than Ubuntu, or more people use OpenSUSE than Manjaro. That's not the case at all. No idea what the numbers of people are that use Linux. I did hear from Martin Wimpress with Ubuntu Mate that they're getting 200,000 downloads a month, which is pretty amazing. So anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole discussion, but let's just run through here real quick. Okay, Linux Mint. Right now, Linux Mint 17.3 has worked on every piece of hardware I've put it on, and I have been able to get it set up and running. Linux Mint 17.3 is based on Ubuntu 14.04, and it is the most stable version of Linux Mint there is, and it will be supported until 2019. There are some issues with Linux Mint, and the biggest issue that I have run into is that when you start trying to install software on Linux Mint that does not come with the distribution, Linux Mint, for one reason or another, it does not necessarily go out and get all the dependencies that a piece of software will need. So for instance, if you want to install the Kdenlive video editor, you have to install a bunch of other stuff to get it to run manually. It won't do it automatically. Now, there is a way that you can change the system so that it does get all of the recommended and suggested packages that go along with what you install. But for a beginner who's not going to be installing a whole bunch of stuff anyway, they're just learning the system, they're going to be using the distribution, Linux Mint is awesome because it comes with just about everything you need already installed to get started. And if you want to install something else on the distribution, most of the time it works. If you're going to be installing something complicated, anything based on KDE, for instance, you're going to have to install some other packages. But those modifications are well documented in the Linux Mint community. So if you want to get Kdenlive running on Linux Mint, just do a search, it comes up. Okay, cool. Let's move on to Debian. And no, I'm not going to get into the whole security thing with Mint because that's something that's going around lately, and that's too big of a can of worms to open up in this video. Let's talk a bit about Debian. Debian is very cool. It's very stable. Of course, Debian is the grandmother distribution that gives us things like Ubuntu, which is based on Debian, and that's cool. The only problem is that Debian, the distribution themselves, the people who run it, they don't want you to use certain software. They are very committed to an open source model of things, so getting some software installed on Debian is a huge pain in the butt. And if you're willing to jump through those hoops to get things that you need installed, great. There is no PPA system. You can't hook up another repository to Debian like you can with Ubuntu or Linux Mint and get a piece of software that's not in the main repositories. But as far as how the system works and how it runs, it's very stable. It's very nice. It's just hard to get Debian to do what you need it to do, especially for a new user. What I'm saying here comes from a new user. And then we've got good old standard Ubuntu. And I've already talked about my problems with Ubuntu. I thought Ubuntu 16.04 looked great in beta, and then when they actually released it, it was full of problems. There are still some issues in there, still some things that need to be worked through. They don't necessarily affect me, so therefore I can go ahead and use it. I love Ubuntu Mate. I have one machine that I have been running Ubuntu Mate on from like 2 days after it was released in beta, and it's never given me any problems. And Cindy uses that machine more than I do. She's my fiance, and she just came to me and she said, "Don't distro hop on this one. I like this. Can you just leave this alone?" So I have let Ubuntu Mate just run on that machine, and it's been rock solid. So, okay. But, Ubuntu is not the most newbie user-friendly distro on the planet. They do not configure everything. You have to go in there and tweak some things as you go along. Sometimes you'll click on a file and it'll say it can't open it, but it might give you a suggestion for a piece of software that you need to download to make that work, whatever the deal is. It's just not as newbie-friendly as, let's say, like a Linux Mint is, and neither is Debian. Debian is not particularly newbie-friendly. It is intermediate. If you are an intermediate Linux user, then you'll probably be all right with it. A lot of people say to me, I used Ubuntu or Linux Mint for a long time, and then I switched to Debian, and I really liked it. But anyway, Ubuntu is Ubuntu, and it has the Unity desktop. But Ubuntu is just an unbelievable brand in the Linux world, and everything Ubuntu does affects every other distro out there, whether you choose to believe that or whether you want to like that or not. They are king of the hill. So if you want to really get into the mainstream of Linux, believe it or not, we're talking about desktop or enterprise Linux desktop-based stuff, Ubuntu is really where it's at. Let's talk about OpenSUSE for a minute. Number 4, I just installed OpenSUSE about, a week ago, and ran it for a couple of days. No, I didn't do a video about it because I never really got that far with it. OpenSUSE is just a weird distribution of Linux. They have a very strange way of doing things. And they have this tool called YAST. And the YAST tool is this monstrous control center which allows you to pretty much tweak anything about the distribution. That's cool, but it's also a minefield because they have settings in there that are just like boxes that you tick for things that go on in that system that I don't even know what they do. It's insane. I didn't get very far with OpenSUSE, not because it didn't work, but because it was too much to get configured and find all the packages and everything. And I mean, they have some cool things. They've got a one-click install. They've got a great software page. You can do a search for a piece of software and see if you can find it. They have rolling release version, Tumbleweed. They have Leap. They're not doing some uncool things. It's just that if you're coming from Ubuntu or even an Arch world to OpenSUSE, you just sit there and kind of scratch your head and go, why'd they do that? Which brings me to Manjaro. Manjaro is, I like what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is they're putting a nice face on Arch Linux, and they're making it very easy to get into that particular world. The only problem with Manjaro is that while I really like the interface and I like the way it works and I like the way they have it set up and everything, it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work on any of the hardware that I happen to have. I always have a problem with Manjaro. There's always a but. It's like, okay, everything works, but this doesn't work. And so that's why I don't use Manjaro or talk much about it, because I personally have never been able to get very far with it. Whereas you take other people on YouTube, they love Manjaro, and that's their main distro, which is cool. But that's my reason for not using Manjaro. But I really like what they're trying to do. It's just, it doesn't seem to work for everybody, and it doesn't seem to work for me. The next is Fedora, and Fedora is the cutting-edge distro that comes from our friends over at Red Hat. It is the open source, yes, it is open source, but it is sort of the research and development arm of the Red Hat Linux. Red Hat is commercial Linux. You have to pay for it. You have to buy it. And Fedora is an open source version, which is actually ahead of what comes in Red Hat Linux because they use it as a testing ground. And Fedora is cool for lots of reasons, but I think that it's a very cutting edge distro, and I don't think it's new user friendly. And there are many reasons why I wouldn't want to use it. One of them is the fact that they have a once every 9-month release schedule. So every 9 months you have to completely reinstall your machine. So no thank you. Then we have Elementary OS. Elementary OS is one that I get asked about a lot. I did one video about it, and Elementary is more about UI and integrated apps than it is about Linux. It's about just having a cool desktop, and that's what those guys do over there. So I wish them the best of luck, but I don't even like their desktop. I'm sorry. I find the entire Pantheon desktop to be very weird, and I don't like it. And then we have Zorin. Zorin is a distribution which is based on Ubuntu that tries to give users a Windows-like experience when they come to Linux. And I don't like that. First of all, every time that I've ever run Zorin or tried to install Zorin, it crashes and it doesn't work, or the desktop's messed up or something. I've never been able to get it to do anything for me. And second of all, I don't know whether it's such a good idea to try and make Linux look and act like Windows. Because Linux is Linux and Windows is Windows. And you need to, it's kind of like, I don't know, I mean, it's hard to find an analogy for that, but if you're going to come to Linux, you need to learn Linux. And some people could argue that, like, Linux Mint tries to be Windows-esque, and in some ways they do, but it's still more Linux than what Zorin tries to do. They try and make it look like a Windows 7 desktop. And then they have the entire thing where it's like there's the free version, and then you get the pro version, and you can pay for it or whatever. I don't want to deal with it. Sorry. You know, if I like a Linux distribution, then guess what? I'm going to donate to it. I really don't want to have those nags or teases or anything like that that says, well, you know, you can get this for free, or you can get this version that has more stuff in it. It's like, I don't like those kind of marketing tactics for anything. This is one of the reasons I don't have a Patreon account on my channel. People ask all the time, why don't you set up a Patreon? Because then I have to create content that's going to be premium content to give to people who are paying me to create that content, and I don't want to get into it. It's like, no, on this channel, I give away the store. I tell you everything I know in a video, and because I think that's the open source model. So, yeah, I could probably make more money off of it, but you know what? If you really like this, you can always just go to Easy Linux and check out my services and maybe, you know, get me to help you install something. And that's one way to say, hey, I really like what you're doing. That's cool. That's fine. I would feel better about that because then I had done some work for you. Anyway, I'm getting off into something else. Now we come down to CentOS, and many people who are new to Linux will probably go, well, what is CentOS? CentOS is an open source version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And it used to be a separate distribution, and now it is actually part of the Red Hat Fedora family there. And so this Linux is this is for servers. CentOS is for servers, enterprise, backends. It is not for desktop use. And while it does have a desktop available, I challenge anyone to take CentOS and get it up to speed where everybody can use it and you have all of the most updated stuff on it. So we won't even talk much about it. And then finally, we have Arch Linux on this list. And Arch Linux is definitely, absolutely, positively not geared toward new users. And I have managed in the last couple of years to get through 2 Arch installs doing it the Arch way, where you actually just follow the wiki and go from one place to the next. But you know what happens to me with that is I get to a certain point in it, and then I just throw up my hands and say, this is ridiculous. Why should I sit here and spend all this time trying to hand configure a desktop? I can install Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Debian, OpenSUSE, Manjaro, Fedora, Elementary, Zorin, and CentOS and have a desktop that is completely configured for me. Everything on this list besides Arch. Now, people in the Arch community have tried, or out just on the edges of the Arch community, have come up with graphical installers. Matter of fact, I talked to a guy named Jody last week who's working on kind of an Arch-based distro that looks pretty cool, and it's going to be easy to install once he gets it up and running. But it just, for me, straight Arch Linux is like, I think that really is for nerds, and that's for the kind of person who wouldn't go to a car lot and buy a car, but they would go out and buy the parts and build one in their backyard. If that's cool with you, that's great, you know. So, we have talked about every distribution on this list. Right now, according to the DistroWatch page, Ubuntu Mate is at number 13, which I think is awesome for Martin Wimpress because that's a really cool distribution of Linux. And I would talk about Mate if it was in the top 10, but we've already talked about Mate, so there it is. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole deal. And to tell you the truth, I'm a bit disgruntled with all of the Linux that's out there right now. Don't get me wrong, I love Linux. I'm not getting ready to go out and install Windows on any machine. No way. Ain't gonna happen. I love Linux and I love using it. And right now I have 3 computers on my network. One of them runs Ubuntu Mate. This one's running Ubuntu 16.04.1. One of them runs Linux Mint 17.3. But each one of those machines, that's what works best for that machine. And while there is no all-in-one solution to what is the best Linux distro out there, it really comes down to what is going to work for you on your hardware. We didn't even talk about, there's some cool distributions out there that are coming along like Solus, which is Linux built from scratch. That might be something you want to look at. And no, you don't have to build it from scratch. I mean, it's not dependent on Ubuntu. It's not dependent on any other distro. It's its own distro. And we didn't even talk about that much. Although I did load up Solus and I looked at it. I didn't do a video about it because I just couldn't get it to do what I wanted it to do. And the software selection for Solus is not that great at this point. It's a new project. They've been working on it for a while, but they're changing their model. They just went to a rolling release and all that happy stuff. So at some point I want to talk about Solus down the road, but not quite yet. Maybe a little bit later on. But the point of this video is just to tell you guys that finding the best Linux distribution, well, it's a moving target. And I think a lot of people get curious and they go, well, you use one for a while and you use another. It just seems to be the way that Linux develops. And I usually stick to things that are in the Debian Ubuntu family. So, yeah, I've been using Mint for a while. I'm still using Mint on one machine. I just happen to be using straight Ubuntu on this machine for a while with the Unity desktop. And we'll see how long this runs, And that's why VirtualBox is such cool software. You can try all the different Linux distributions and download them for free. And if you don't like it, just delete it and it's gone. Isn't that cool? Now, for people who are first starting out in Linux, I still say that Linux Mint is a good place to start. I think Ubuntu Mate is a great place to start. But it depends on your use case, it depends on your hardware, and it depends on how much time you want to invest learning about Linux. If you just want something that just works and you don't care, Linux Mint is great. And if all you're going to do is a little bit of stuff on the net and you're going to do, email and write some documents and print it, Linux Mint is awesome. Great, no problem. If you're not going to be adding to that distro or doing a whole lot to it, that's a really great place to start. And so is Ubuntu Mate. That's a good place to start too. Although Ubuntu Mate tends to be for people who want to learn, because there's a process that you go through to set it up. Very easy process, but it's there. And whereas Mint, even with Linux Mint 18, you click one box at install that says install all the third-party software, boots up, it's there, you're done. Choose a theme, configure your desktop, go on with life. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this video. I just wanted to ramble on about it for a little bit. They all have flaws. Every one that we talked about. They all have problems and issues. There is no perfect Linux. But I want to tell you something. Once you find one that works for you, and once you land on the right distribution for your needs, that's when you'll become very loyal to it. Because you'll be like, okay, this does what I need it to do. Great. Now don't mess up the world. So anyway, that was the point of this video. It was just a ramble. And yes, Ubuntu 16.04 is working nicely, and probably going to stick with this for a little while. And I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of feedback from this video, and a lot of people are going to have things to say, which is perfectly all right. Just be respectful. And I do look forward to your comments. Love your suggestions for new videos. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there will be another Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server coming soon, and we're going to have a guest, so it's going to be cool. Check out Easy Linux on the web, check out Easy Linux on Facebook, and check out Easy Linux on YouTube, of course. Actually, what I wanted to say was check out freedompenguin.com, because freedompenguin.com has lots of cool articles about Linux from contributors such as myself, and it is a great place to learn more about what's going on in the world of Linux for the average desktop user. Okay, so do check that out. I'm done. I will talk to you guys later. Love to hear your comments. Talk to you again soon.